This is Marketing Uncomplicated. Hi, everybody. My guest today is Nicolas Hannenberg, co-founder and president of Kangaroo Insurance. After a career in investment, banking, and private equity, I decided to, he decided.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Was I supposed to do third person?
No, it's fine. I'll do it again. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. My host today is Nicolas Hannenberg, co-founder and president of Kangaroo Insurance. After a career of investment banking and private equity, he decided to become an entrepreneur. He created Kangaroo Insurance, which hopes to become the person's line's go-to insurtech for the 65 million Spanish-speaking Americans. It's a huge number, and we'll dive into that with Nicolas in terms of hitting out that demographic. We offer the Oh my God. Okay, cut and then go back. They offer the best pet insurance and renters insurance products with a full bilingual experience using great tech. I'm going to do it one more time. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay, let's roll number 2. Hi, everybody. My guest today, Nicolas Hannenberg, co-founder and president of Kangaroo Insurance. Hi, Nicolas.
Hey, Sasha. Thanks for having me.
Likewise, thanks for being on. After a career, so really going from investment banking into the tech world of private equity, he decided to become an entrepreneur. They created Kangaroo Insurance, which hopes to become the person's line's go-to insurtech for 65 million Spanish-speaking Americans. Guys, huge number and a huge demographic to target if that's something that you guys are going to be going after. We'll dive into that in a little bit. They offer the best pet insurance and renters insurance products with a full bilingual experience using great tech. Thank you so much for joining, Nicolas.
Thanks for having me. Excited to do this.
Yes. So you are another person that I've spoken to that has moved away from the tech industry and that has moved away from the finance industry and that has jumped into the tech industry. I want to shed a little light on your history and your work experience and then really get into how it all started and the idea and how it came about.
Yeah, sure. So, deep down, I always thought I was going to be an entrepreneur, but I even went to Babson College, which is one of like the top entrepreneurial schools. And then after college, everyone told me that investment banking was the holy grail in terms of learning a skill set that you could basically apply to everything after school or after kind of that 2-year stint. So I did that. I started doing mergers and acquisitions advisory, and then I moved into the world of investments, where I was fortunate enough to really look at all sorts of business models and kind of pick apart companies from all sorts of angles, which really gave me a really
Vision.
good lens into how to dissect business models and understand how companies work. I sort of fell into the golden handcuff trap, and what was going to be 2 years ended up being 12 years, where I was, I was happy for sure. I was having a pretty successful corporate career, but I knew that I had to, at some point, make the leap of faith and start my own company.
Mm-hmm. I love how you talk about the golden handcuffs because I think, look, there are people that work in a 9 to 5 and they thrive within their own sort of like scalability in terms of reaching the goals that they want to reach. But I think those of us that step out into the entrepreneurial field and kind of roller coaster ride, as we'll get into as well, really is seeking something different and has a passion for what they're doing. So tell me a little bit about how was this idea born? When did it start? What was the conversation? I mean, what was the tipping point?
Yeah, sure. So I think it's a really an intersection between what was going on in my personal life and where my career was, right? So from a personal side of the equation, right, I sort of looked at myself in the mirror and said, I'm 12, 13 years into experience as a professional. I definitely know what I'm doing now relative to when I was 20 years old. But by the same token, I'm also at a place where I don't really have the obligations that one might think you would have, right? So I don't have I didn't have kids. I wasn't married.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of like a now or never moment.
Mm-hmm.
So from a personal perspective, I think the timing was right. And then it was also about the right opportunity and the right partnership. My co-founder is a childhood friend of mine. We've known each
Mm-hmm.
other since we were, 3 or 4 years old. Long time friend before anything. Um, Also kind of equally passionate about insurance, which is an odd
Mm-hmm.
thing to be passionate about.
Yeah.
And I would find myself at parties talking about insurance with him, and we always spoke about doing something together. And we sat down uh, at lunch during COVID, and we kind of started spitballing ideas,
Mm-hmm.
and that's when the company was born. And I'm happy to tell you about kind of what the opportunity that we saw was, if
Yeah,
that
I
makes
would love
sense.
to hear about the opportunity and the break.
Yeah. So I think the common denominator, or kind of what we both knew, that we he's kind of really good at the kind of the tech and I'll call it direct to consumer marketing side of
Mm-hmm.
things, and I
Mm-hmm.
was really good at the risk and finance part of the equation. So I think they were complementary skill sets. I think that the common denominator was insurance, right? We knew we wanted to do something in the financial services space that was tech enabled. And then we started canvassing the market, and we realized that pet insurance made a ton of sense for a handful of reasons. Pet insurance is, we live in a country where there's something like 180 million pets. There's something like, two, two, something like a dog in every 2 out of every 3 households, which is
Mm-hmm.
crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And only 6% of those pets are insured, right? So the competition wasn't really other pet insurance companies. It was just people grappling with the idea of having pet insurance. And then,
Because in terms of like needing it, in terms of like cost, in terms of not knowing how to navigate the waters.
yeah, I think it's a couple of things, right? I think that just like the inflationary environment that we're in today has
Mm-hmm.
heavily impacted the vet space. So anybody that owns a pet that's had an accident walks into a vet, walks out with a $5,000 vet bill. I think the kind of the COVID boom in dog ownership was also kind of a big catalyst for what we were doing. Um, but the value proposition for pet insurance is ever growing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just
Mm-hmm.
because of the nature of people treating their pets like their kids. Your kids have health insurance. Why shouldn't your pet? And the overall cost and kind of the financial planning and financial responsibility that comes with owning a pet. So, put that kind of industry tailwind, that like unstoppable force that's happening in the market, which is
Mm-hmm.
pet ownership is growing. The cost of pet ownership is something like $30,000, which most people don't even factor for.
Mm-hmm.
And the cost of care generally is growing in this country, and the right thing to do is to spend 50 to 60 bucks a month protecting yourself from that very likely 5, 10, $15,000 emergency that the pet might have.
Mm-hmm.
um, so we kind of saw that trend on one side of the equation, and then on the other side we said, what do we know how to do well? We're both Latin, we're both Spanish speaking. We both know financial services, and we said nobody's going after the Latinos, the 70 million Latinos, on a direct to consumer basis.
Mm-hmm.
And we said, look, sounds crazy when you put it together, pet insurance for the Spanish speaking Americans, but there's close to 40 million potential customers,
Yep.
and they're completely ignored.
Yep.
So we started with pet insurance, and then the goal is to continue to roll out other products.
Yeah. I don't think it sounds crazy. I think it is an untapped market. And I think that, you guys nailed it. I mean, in that sense, because you have to reach an environment and really support those that are living in this space that don't necessarily know, how to navigate these types of things. And, being that, guys, I support Kangaroo, and my dog also has kangaroo pet insurance, and, navigating through what is the best option and the best choice, just based on whether you've adopted a dog, that may have come with, different ailments, or whether you've just, purchased a dog from a good breather, and they're, completely new and little puppies, and, you don't really need the mass in terms of the insurance. But I think that, it's a win-win in both ends in terms of supporting that demographic. And I don't think it is siloed just to the 65, 70 million Spanish speaking market. But I mean, I think that you guys have reach. What do you consider to be your main differentiating factor based on kangaroo and other pet insurances?
Yeah, sure. So I'll get into that, but you kind of just reminded me, because
Yeah.
this is a marketing podcast.
Yeah.
I think you hit on a great point there, which is a big part of. I always say that there's kind of three prongs to our messaging and our content.
Yep.
The first one is you can sell pet insurance through love, right? So you want to give your pet the best possible life because
Mm-hmm.
it's your child. There's fear, right? Which is you don't want to be in that situation where you have to choose between a $10,000 emergency vet bill and all the other obligations that you might have, right? And then a third part of it is education, which
Mm-hmm.
is exactly what you were talking about, right? I think educating the consumer and helping them make those choices is critical, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the messaging across kind of those three, depending on who your customer is something that we strive to get right. So that's a big part of what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, education is empowerment across anything. So, I mean, I think the fact that you're setting that up from the get go, which is giving them the option, how do they navigate how easy it is to sign up and what is going to be the best option. So, but yeah, so I mean, going back to my question in terms of unique value proposition amongst your competitor stack.
yeah. So I think there's a couple kind of key differentiators, right? If you look across our industry, there's probably 10 to 12 real competitors,
Yep.
right? I think that we are more than happy to compete with any of them on product, right? And what I mean by product is coverage, um, differentiation, customization, all of that. I think our kind of key differentiator is our technology,
Mm-hmm.
right? So our ability, or our customers' ability to basically buy a policy in 5 minutes,
Yep.
um, through our flow, and then our claims process, right? So if you actually do need to use the insurance, which we hope all customers do, because that's when they see the value of it, is that they can submit their claims on our app and they can get reimbursed very quickly, right? 2 to 5 business days is what we typically take to process
Mm-hmm.
claims. And with AI, that's just becoming faster and faster. So I think our biggest differentiator is our tech. I think the other kind of key differentiator is our customer service, right? I am a highly impatient individual and I hate calling companies and not being able to talk to humans. So,
Mm-hmm.
kind of that perfect intersection between um, tech, but having humans behind it, and
Yep.
a kind of a core customer service, or core like empathy belief that you can always talk to somebody. And then lastly, really our angle for the US Spanish speaker, right? So we identify with our consumer. We're the only company, as far as I know, in the country that has legally approved documents, because at the end of the day, insurance is a promise.
Mm-hmm.
It's a legal document
Mm-hmm.
that has both policy forms in Spanish and English, and sort of a full end-to-end experience on the tech and legal side that is in both Spanish and English. So I think those are kind of our key differentiators. I think looking forward, another kind of key differentiator for us is not being a one-trick pony, not being a one-product company, and expanding our menu to be able to live with our consumer from pet ownership and kind of that aspect, and kind of that's one of the purchases we see our consumers make early on in their life, then evolving to protecting their belongings when they rent, and then eventually, hopefully, we'll be able to offer auto insurance, life insurance, all kind of a buffet of personal line products, and live with our customer for a very long time and have kind of extended lifetime value and add a lot of value to our customers' lives.
Yeah, the full kind of menu of insurance just based on any individual's needs. I want to take a step back to your claims in terms of submitting it that has a combination, as you mentioned, with AI. So I've experienced it. Knock on wood, I've only experienced it just for health reasons in terms of checkups for Archie. But I did find it fascinating because what was really nice and supportive is that it moved you from each phase as a question and to fill out the form. It wasn't just simply read here, drop this in here, move on, which is what typically happens, I think, with most claims. And this was very efficient in the sense of, what is the type of claim, drop down menu, click here, add your documents, take a screenshot, so on and so forth. And then you are right, within a couple of days it was approved, and the reimbursement happened, which I think for a lot of the demographic, that's what they're really looking for, specifically also if the bill is quite high. So we go back to, and the reason why I'm bringing this up, other than that, I think it's a very seamless process. We go back to chatbots and customer service, and how people tended, as you mentioned, and hated to always have to speak to somebody that wasn't a human or pick up the phone and dial. So how did you guys navigate the waters in terms of getting this set up? Because AI is not new, but the technology in terms of embedding it can either make or break somebody's experience. So I'd love to just hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, look, I think core to who we are is taking something that's traditionally complex, right? Insurance, and something that most people kind of get a bad taste in their mouth, which is insurance or banking or
Yep.
kind of financial services generally, and trying to simplify it and putting everything in sort of, you know, plain English or plain Spanish,
Yep.
and trying to simplify it in that form, and then offering that experience, because it really is at its core an insurance company's its abilities to pay claims, in a in an interactive kind of back and forth. If I were to do this on the phone, or if I were to do this with somebody in real time, like what would that feeling be like, right? And then to the AI, look, it's such a like it's the landscape for AI is changing so rapidly, and it's so applicable to everything that we do, right? So I think, our claims experience 100%, right? So like there's kind of the front end part of it, which is exactly what you're talking about, right? Like the AI interaction with the consumer. On the back end of it, it's the ability to process invoices much faster, right? So through like OCR technology and other kind of data extraction and data analysis, we can train AI to actually read our policy documents, read invoices, make underwriting decisions, make claims decisions, and be able to give our customers their claim back instead of in 5 days. Hopefully, we'll get that down to minutes or hours,
Yeah.
right? Which is fascinating. So AI is definitely applicable on the front end for kind of the claims filing and claims receiving experience. It's definitely applicable for the back end claims experience. It's very applicable in the customer service world, and I think that's kind of the one that you'll see kind of, just not just us, but just generally speaking. I think customer service is going to see a huge uptick and boom in the AI adaptation and integration, and then on the marketing side as well. Frankly, I think there's going to be a ton of stuff that we're going to be able to do with AI. We're extremely excited about it.
Yeah.
But to your point, buying the right tool and integrating the right tool into the tech stack is a decision that you kind of have to be very surgical about. But it's not easy, and training these models isn't easy. But it's something that everyone's going to be working on. And if you don't do it, you're just going to be left behind.
No, I totally agree. In terms of, because obviously we all know data is king, listening to your customer base is what's going to make you a better product, offering like a more seamless service. What interesting factors have come out of just listening to the demands of your customers, or what are cool things that are coming out? And you don't have to reveal them all if it's something that you're turning into a new product, but what has surprised you from some of the customer insights and data that you're kind of hearing today?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot of things, right? So, for example, I'll just give you kind of like the two biggest trends in my industry and how they're applicable to us, right? So, on the distribution side, right, I think that there's a huge boom into what people call embedded insurance, right? So, you buy your ticket on American Airlines, and at the end there's a checkbox that says add the insurance, and it's done. You buy the sofa on Amazon, you want to insure the sofa, you click a checkbox, and it's done. So for us, from a distribution perspective, it's being able to find the right partners to help us market and distribute our product, but not just from a traditional marketing way, but through actual API integrations and customer journey. Like, where do we fit into that customer journey? Where's the biggest success going to be for somebody that is, booking a dog hotel, and, we can market our product seamlessly into that customer journey, right? So embedded insurance, it's not something that's new, but it's definitely the kind of where the market and the marketing and the partnership kind of world is heading. Which is really interesting.
But
so
it's
from
new for the pet industry, for the pet insurance industry, it would be new.
It's certainly new for the pet industry. And everyone that's in our space is kind of looking for those partnerships. And we've done it successfully, fortunately, but it's very interesting how products aren't going to be, just because of the boom in APIs, right? Like, digital products aren't going to be sold on such a standalone basis as they have been historically. Which is really interesting. And then on like the actual product side of things, I think the data has shown us that there's a ton of things that we can do from an insurance perspective to make our product more interesting and more tailored to our customers, right? So right now, the way insurance is priced out, right, it's relatively simple. And you could take in a lot more customer data to make sure that risk is correctly priced. So I'll give you just a quick example here. So, I know that Sasha feeds Archie the best food. I know she walks him every day. I know that you are an amazing pet parent, and you should be rewarded for that, right? Your insurance premium should probably be lower than the person who is not a great pet parent. And the intake of all that data to price risk, I think, is something that's huge, and it's going to happen. And then I think there's a lot of stuff that we can do, not just around pricing risk, but also incentivizing people to do things better, right? So there's a whole boom in wearables for humans and wearables for pets, where we can monitor exercise levels and reward people for being healthy, right? Because at the end of the day, if the pet is healthy, the insurance company doesn't have to pay a claim. And by the way, not paying a claim is not a bad thing, which means that the pet's healthy. So a lot of very, very, very interesting things to be done with data.
You mean like how let's just start to roll over into car insurance and how we shouldn't be paying for other people's mistakes?
100%. And there's actually a big boom in car insurance for like the whole pay per mile, right? So people that drive a lot should not have to pay as much as people, or should pay more than people that don't drive as much. And that I think you'll see kind of coming
Yeah.
into the car insurance market.
I think I've seen it a little bit in the healthcare insurance, just having stepped out and starting my own business. I was targeted on Instagram for sole business owner insurance, and they base you on your lifestyle, your health. And so basically, instead of paying a huge premium, stepping out on your own, because I think one of the biggest things for a lot of people when they, have an idea and they want to step out, walking away from certain things like an ongoing paycheck and also health insurance, as you mentioned specifically. Also, you didn't have children and so on when starting it. So these type of factors, I think, are going to be huge, and it ties into the concept of growing your menu beyond pet insurance so that it becomes an entire. I'm going to go to Kangaroo. I'm going to buy my pet insurance, my homeowner's insurance, my renter's insurance, my car insurance, maybe potentially, I don't know, health insurance one day, and just being able to be set up end to end, I think sounds wonderful.
That's the dream.
Yeah. So is that the biggest dream for Kangaroo, is kind of expanding out on the menu, or what other sort of pipe dreams do you have just in terms of reach or growth?
Yeah, look, I think it's that, right? I think it's being able to offer the best product at a competitive price point across many states, because insurance is a state by state thing, to consumers that like us and want to stay with us, right? We want to be the insurance company that people like.
I love that. So shifting gears a little bit, thank you for all of that, Nicholas. I want to talk into, you had the product, you built the tech, you built the app, the platform. How did you get it into the hands of your ideal customer base? Obviously, we're talking about your primary target audience being the Spanish speaking Americans. That's not to say that anybody can't sign up, but I really want to learn more about your customer journey in terms of, okay, this date we launched and we had a marketing plan. What did that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. What's interesting about, and some of the listeners might find this interesting because they might live in kind of a multi distribution world like we do, right? So for us, it's not just a single marketing strategy, because we really sell our product one of four ways. Frankly, we have probably the most relevant for this is the direct to consumer approach, which is us driving traffic to our Kangaroo Insurance website and, you know, paying, at the end of the day, paying an acquisition cost for the customer, measuring the lifetime value of the customer, and just having them kind of come directly to us, right? So there's a whole direct to consumer marketing strategy that we can dive into, but we also have you know, our B2B strategy, which is, or our B2B to C strategy, which is us finding partners, right? So in our insurance world, that really kind of takes three forms. One is partnering with insurance agents and agencies. So we need to market to people that distribute insurance. So the same guy that sold you your home insurance or your auto insurance can now sell you your Kangaroo pet insurance. And we need to find these agents and sign them up and make them believers in our product and explain to them the value proposition and why it's great for their customers to have pet insurance. We also went out and had to find pet industry, partners, right? So partners that are active participants in either the retail or the online space that have access to our ideal customer, right? So people that are geographically or people that have businesses that are geographically located where we want it to be, that are interacting with pet parents, that are interacting with pet parents that speak Spanish. Kind of who are these businesses that have all this foot traffic or this online traffic, and how can we partner with them to kind of cut the corner and add value to their customers and to bring in customers, for ourselves? And how do we kind of make that symbiotic relationship live together? And then finally, there's a big kind of trend or distribution vertical in pet insurance or insurance generally, which is employee benefits and affinity marketing. So finding, those associations or those membership based groups and offering them perks and benefits. So we sat down and we said, oh my God, there's so many ways to potentially sell this thing. Let's put together a plan for each one of those verticals, and let's go attack the market in various ways. We obviously fell on our face more than once, but it was, the good thing is that if one isn't working, maybe the other will.
No, I love that you bring that up, because one of the biggest things is I want people to know that there are going to be road bumps. There are going to be obstacles that every business faces in terms of launching and product market fit, content, how you guys are describing what you guys do. What was the biggest lesson? We don't need to get into the details unless you want to, in terms of one of the biggest pitfalls, but what was the biggest lessons that came out of the mistakes just to keep you guys moving forward?
Yeah, so on like the direct to consumer side, I think there's a lot of lessons, right? I think it's frankly, we had some trial and error with third parties managing our SEO, third parties managing our content. We actually just kind of, after trials and tribulations, I think decided to bring it all sort of in-house and develop the expertise ourselves. I think that was something that took us a long time to learn. The other thing that is kind of critical is hiring the right people to help you execute on whatever vision you have. And I think they always say hire fast, fire fast, but the problem with that is that sometimes you don't want to admit your mistakes.
Yeah.
But putting the right people in the right place, definitely another kind of mistake that you probably make. And then on the partnership side, I think it's just learning to embrace rejection, right? It's you're just going to get rejected a million times, and you just can't give up. So yeah, resilience and trial and error, a lot of A/B testing, a lot of not putting all your eggs in one basket. I think there's a lot to unpack there, but yeah, never. I always say never kind of put too many marketing dollars into something unless it works. So just experiment, and then once you finally find that mousetrap that works for you, kind of exploit it.
Yeah, totally. And as we talked about earlier, to your point, knowing what you're good at and what you're not good at, and being able to bring people on board to do that job.
Yeah, look, if people that are listening to this are thinking about starting a business, I think one of the most critical things that nobody talks about is who you select as a business partner. I think that I'm very lucky because my relationship with my business partner is very healthy, right? So we have kind of a no blame culture. We kind of make decisions together. We live and die with our decisions. There's a lot of responsibility that each one of us have. There's a lot of accountability that comes with that responsibility, but as long as you can maintain sort of a very healthy relationship with somebody that has a complementary skill set, it's probably the one very, very, very important decision in starting a company that nobody kind of really tells you got to get it right.
Yeah. It's interesting that you bring that up. I did want to ask you about that, because sometimes, there is the concept of don't go into business with your best friends. I mean, in your case, childhood friend, which is almost like your brother. So I think, clarifying that in terms of it is a marriage at the end of the day, how do you guys get along? I love your concept of like a no blame environment. You guys make decisions together. And even if it was the idea of one versus another. I also heard on a podcast, an investment podcast, where they're a VC firm based out overseas, and they were talking about how they will never look at pitches of a solopreneur. They will only ever look at pitches that have partnerships, because as you talked about, you can go on vacation, you can take time off. I mean, the burn rate, with startups is very high and it happens very quickly. And so being able to kind of support each other and like have that lifestyle balance, talk to us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I mean, lifestyle balance, I don't know, because I think we're, frankly, again, very blessed because I think we're both equally ambitious and we
Yes.
have a sort of a shared vision of what we need this to be, and what we want it to be. Before we kind of signed anything, I think we kind of made sure that we were aligned philosophically with what we wanted to accomplish.
Yep.
Like, what's the end game here? Um, I think that once you kind of know what the other person's time horizon is, when you know the other person's objectives are, and they're aligned, I think that that's critical for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, again, it's just, it's something where, not only like your business partner, but like all the experience and the connections that they bring are very important. So yeah, again, would highly encourage anyone that wants to start a business to make sure they get that one decision correct, because I
Yeah.
think it has a trickle down effect into everything that you do going forward.
Yeah. Um, so diving in a little bit into obviously starting anything like this, there's costs associated with it. Um, I recently spoke to somebody who came from the VC world. So I would love to hear, did you guys raise funds? Where did you raise funds? Are you just utilizing your own funds? Did you go to a bank and get funds? Like, how did you start the beginnings of this process from a funding standpoint?
Yeah, so look, I think, we were both lucky to come from, um, successful corporate careers where we had the ability to sort of seed the business, which is a huge leg up. I know not everyone has that sort of, luxury, but, um, we our philosophy was, we need to sort of build this to a point where we're bringing dollars in the door, before we start to go raise money, just because
Mm-hmm.
we don't want to dilute ourselves or end up working for somebody else until this thing is actually worth something. So, frankly, we bootstrapped as long, and we continue to bootstrap as long as we do. I think we have maybe a different philosophy than a lot of other, startups, where for us it's, we want to build a long-term sustainable business, whereas a lot of startups just are willing to pay whatever for a customer acquisition and
Kind of build
doesn't
and
really,
sell concept.
yeah,
Yeah.
trying to just build, buy, spend to try to grow. But are you really spending and growing into something that is profitable over the long haul? And for us it was, let's go slow and steady and make sure we're doing something that, once the dust settles, this is a
Mm-hmm.
profitable and sustainable business. So yeah, very very fortunate from that perspective.
Yeah, no, I love that. I mean, you touch on the slow and steady growth, which is something I talk a lot about in terms of, dipping into the marketing world slow and steady and testing and knowing product market fit, knowing what channels work for you. What have you guys seen from a marketing standpoint in terms of marketing channels? I know there is the partnership angle, the B2B side, the B2C side. Let's maybe talk about from a B2C side and acquisition, what is the most lucrative channel that you guys have seen so far in all of your testing to gain new customers?
Yeah, so I mean, look, I think if you think about like the marketing funnel, right, it's probably not very different than any other
Mm-hmm.
widget business,
Mm-hmm.
right? We have social media presence, both organic and inorganic. We have, I'll call it social media meta, if you want to call it that, presence, where we're spending money to drive users to our websites. We have SEO strategy. I think the SEO strategy is pretty bifurcated in that we kind of have like our core SEO strategy, and then we have like adjacent SEO strategies, whether that's through comparison websites, whether that's through just content generation that eventually leads to our end goal, which is to get people to quote and buy.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's again, I don't think it's anything that's too innovative. I would, emphasize the fact that nothing works like you gotta, you kind of like the top of the funnel, you kind of have to do everything, right? And then you have to feed it to the bottom of the funnel. But there's a lot of value in having kind of every top of the funnel machine, whether that's meta, whether that's SEO, whether that's organic, whether that's social, all sort of feeding the machine. I think you gotta kind of do it all.
Yeah.
And they each have their own costs associated with them, but my biggest advice is quantify everything.
Yep.
Frankly,
Data.
Data. Just quantify everything. Don't go on these like spending sprees that you think will generate brand awareness or whatever. But at the end of the day,
track it all.
you got to focus on conversions and traffic and CPC, CPL, CPAs.
Yep. Last two questions. What was your first hire?
My first hire, it was a good one. Our first hire was our head of claims and underwriting. So our first hire was our insurance guy, frankly, our risk guy. I think we kind of thought through what our competencies were individually, and then we also thought about what business, what our kind of core principle or core value to our customers was, and it's our ability to pay claims and our ability to understand the risk that we're taking. So we said, look, we need somebody that's kind of a savant at claims, and we brought him on, and he's been a rock star.
Wow. I love that angle in terms of, a lot of either tech or tech startups will think, I need to hire somebody to help me with marketing, or I need to hire somebody to help me with sales. And you guys went right to it to support your customers. I mean, you guys were needing, and your true value is that support from a customer standpoint. So I think that that's great that was your first hire out of the door. From a marketing tech stack tools, are you guys as a tech company building your systems internally, or are you utilizing what's out there for your use?
It's hybrid. I would tell you that on the marketing side, it's definitely kind of the CRMs that you would, the kind of the household name CRMs that you see out there as kind of our core marketing tool. But then you kind of end up plugging in a whole bunch of tools into that CRM, whether that's, the right IP phone provider, whether that's the right, whatever it is, you end up kind of just the right chatbots, the right whatever, you kind of end up plugging everything. But I would say the nucleus from a marketing perspective is the CRM.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. Well, this has been amazing, Nick. I really appreciate it. I can really pull out your passion for this. And I think you guys are on a trajectory upward. And I can't wait to hear more about all the other insurance platforms that you guys are going to be building, and just, how you continue to grow. So please tell the audience where they can find you, and how they can follow you.
You can find us on our website, Kanguro, KANGURO, insurance.com. If you have a pet, we'd love to insure them. Or feel free to reach out to me if you guys need anything at all.
One last question.
So,
why the name Kangaroo?
So it's twofold. One, it's a play on words, right? So we've seen that a lot of like fintechs or insurtechs are gravitating away from like the traditional financial services names. So we didn't want to have the word bank or like, mutual or something boring in our name. We like the kangaroo because it's, it has the pouch and it's like a safety, and it has like that nice kind of association of protection. And then lastly, we spelled it Kanguro because in Spanish, the word insurance is seguro, and canguro seguro has a nice ring to it.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Nick. This has truly been a pleasure.
Yeah. Thanks, Sasha. Can't wait to do this again.
Likewise, likewise.
All right. Thank you so much.